Travel for me hasn't always been about a cozy vacation or a luxury stay. Sometimes it's about rediscovering myself, getting out of my comfort zone, and experiencing life from a different perspective. I'm Mr. Matta, and in this series of videos, I'll share with you how I planned and executed a solo trip to one of America's most expensive cities all by myself without the help of any travel agent. I'll not only show you how I managed all my daily accommodation and food expenses, but also give you tips on how I explored all the major attractions walking and just using the public transport. Throughout this entire video, I'll try my best to give you a glimpse of the life here, things that I learned, and share with you my perspective of New York's most visited attractions like the Brooklyn Bridge, Times Square, Rockefeller Center, and the World Trade Center area. I'll take you on a cruise to the Statue of Liberty and show you exactly what it is like to shop in this fashion dreamland. From watching the Veterans Day Parade to renting a bike and to seeing Gwen Stefani perform live, here is my journey to New York City. So the first step is to book the cheapest flight tickets that you can find, because trust me, the biggest expense of my journey were the flight tickets. The two websites which I religiously use for finding a good deal are Skyscanner and Google Flights. Google Flights has an amazing feature wherein if your travel dates are flexible, you can put in a date range and see the cheapest price for that particular range. New York has 3 airports and all of them are in close proximity to the city center, so whichever airport has the cheapest flight, I suggest that you go ahead and book your tickets without any hesitation. My flight journey with Delta Airlines was quite comfortable. I had good food, one of the best movie collections that I had ever seen on any flight, and an access to all the essentials. I had a small layover in London where I got a chance to step out of the airport and explore the city for a bit. If you haven't watched my London video yet, what are you waiting for? So after an 8-hour long flight, I finally made it to JFK Airport in New York. I had already researched my public transport options from the airport itself, and you can do so too before you land, or you can use the airport's Wi-Fi to create a public transport route to your hostel or hotel. The main attractions of New York are in the Manhattan area, which is a very expensive place to live in, even if you're planning to live in a shared dorm or a hostel. New York is surrounded by New Jersey and Brooklyn, which aren't very far apart, and the accommodation is at least 2 times cheaper in these places. Booking a hotel is a very expensive option in New York, as a one-night stay in a decent 3-star hotel will cost you upwards of $300 a night. You can use websites like booking.com to find a good deal, but for me, since I was going to be out exploring the city the majority of the time and only use the place to sleep, it was no-brainer that staying in a hostel was a viable option. A decent hostel will only cost you $50 a night, and it also gives you the opportunity to socialize with fellow travelers. In my entire journey, I stayed in 2 hostels, and both of them were extremely clean and right in the city center. Both of them had the option to select a shared dorm or a private room. The rooms are really small, but since I just wanted to sleep, I found them to be more than sufficient. You do have access to shared bathrooms and you get free breakfast in the morning, which I feel is one of the best times to socialize with fellow travelers. The website which I had used to book my hostel was the hostelworld.com website. I stayed in Chelsea Cabin Hostel for the first 2 days of my trip and paid around $40 per day. And although it wasn't that expensive, I found the rooms to be extremely small. As you can see from the video, they have just made small cabins in an open space that serve as rooms. Each cabin had all the essentials like a proper bed, space for storage, and a socket to charge my electronics. But the problem with these cabins was that I could hear the person in the next cabin and it was way too small for my liking. So on the next day, I checked out another hostel called the Chelsea International Hostel, which was available for the same price, but this one was much bigger than my last hostel. I've used shared bathrooms in my gym, so using shared bathrooms was not a big deal for me. But if you're someone who doesn't like the idea of staying in a hostel and you don't want to spend a bomb on hotels, then another accommodation option in New York, which I have experienced myself, is to use Airbnb, which is a concept where a local rents out his or her house for travelers, and it is a very affordable option compared to staying in a hotel. The room size is generally much bigger than what you'll find in a hostel, and the best part about living in Airbnb is that you get to learn a lot from your host. Once I was thorough with my accommodation, the next challenge for me was to figure out a way to commute within the city. And trust me, it was much easier than I thought it would be. New York is one of the easiest cities to figure out your way, and Google Maps is your best friend. The best way to explore the city is to just walk or rent a bike, for which all you need to do is to download the City Bike app and you're good to go. The bikes are parked at convenient locations around the city and you can pick up one easily. It costs about $3 for a single ride for the first 30 minutes and then 15 cents for every extra minute that you ride. There are also passes available and you can buy a 24-hour day pass for around $12. But if you're someone like me who loves to walk, then buying a metro pass and exploring all the major attractions using the subway and walking is a very rewarding experience. New York City subway is one of the world's oldest public transit systems. It is one of the most used and the one which is extremely well connected. Any stairs that you see going downwards will take you to the subway station, and they can be found in almost all corners of the city. To use the subway, you need to buy a Metro Pass and swipe the card every time you enter the station. Metro Passes can be purchased using your debit card or credit card, or even using cash on the MetroCard machines, which are available at almost all stations. If you are in the city for more than 3 to 4 days and you are going to be using the metro a lot, I recommend that you take the 7-day unlimited pass, which costs around $33 and which has no restrictions on the number of rides that you can take. You can also just purchase the Metro card for $1 and refill it as and when required. A typical one-way fare is around $2.75, so you can always do your math and choose the option which works cheaper for your needs. Subway stations are not the cleanest and sometimes are crowded with people and sometimes completely empty. And if you feel that something or someone doesn't seem alright, maintain your distance. The best part that I like about the subway is that you always have access to mobile data and you can use Google Maps and view your routes in real time. Talking about mobile data, I did not buy a local SIM card in New York as my Indian SIM card had international roaming. But if you want to buy a local SIM card, then AT&T and Verizon are good options. My Jio SIM card was on AT&T's network all the time and it worked flawlessly. If you're not so comfortable using the public transport and you prefer taking a cab, then Lyft and Uber are two apps that I had used to book my cabs. They work exactly the same way like they do everywhere else in the world. Cab fares are slightly expensive, but finding cabs is easy and it is one of the most comfortable ways to explore the city. If you want to explore the city from a different perspective, then you can also get on the hop-on and hop-off buses that take you around the major attractions in the city. I'm not a big fan of these buses because they are not as fun as walking, and I always prefer taking my sweet time to explore the attractions. Now that I've given you a good idea about how I managed my accommodation and travel, in the next video of this series, I'm going to share with you all the major attractions that I checked out here. I hope you found some value out of this video, and if you have any queries, please feel free to leave your thoughts in the comments below. Until the next one, this is Mr. Matta signing off.